Welcome to the Rotowire DFS podcast brought to you by FanDuel.com, the leader in one-day fantasy sports. I'm your host, Josh Hayes, joined as always by Benny Ricciardi as we break down the Wednesday NBA DFS slate. You can always find Benny on Twitter at BennyR11 and over at RotoCurve, Rotowire, and on the DraftKings Playbook. And you can also follow me on Twitter at JoshHayesFS. The Rotowire DFS podcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher and now live. Excuse me?
Oh, sorry, I was clearing my throat.
Okay, you know what? We're just rolling with it. We're live. I was going to say that the Rotowire DFS podcast is on iTunes and Stitcher, but what's more important is that Benny swallowed a frog. That's what's happening on this show. That's what we need to address here. So, was it tasty? How did it go down for you?
No, I have a big cup of iced tea right here, and it went down the wrong pipe while you were talking, so I was trying to.
What is going on? This is why, we are not the best in business for nothing. I'll say this. You know what I mean? That's what
roll with it.
Quality professionals that do nothing the best. I will. That probably just sprung on you, and there's probably nothing you can do about it. But like, if it was me and I was a broadcast professional with thousands of hours of podcast time under my belt, I would have switched off my mic. That's just me. So you know what I mean. But I have to give you crap since you ruined my promo successfully. So thank you very much. But while I was in the middle of thinking Benny was dying during my promo, I was going to say that this show is live streaming on the official Rotowire channel and via Google Hangouts, and does appear faster than anywhere else on Rotowire's official YouTube channel. So if you'd like to get the information before anybody else, before I can actually turn this video into a podcast, all you have to do is search Rotowire on YouTube. This comes up. Make sure you subscribe to the Rotowire official channel. You have the information before everybody else. And we definitely appreciate you guys watching on YouTube, subscribing, listening, and on the podcast and downloading as you guys always do. So appreciate all of that. And without further ado, we will get into the point guard position here for Wednesday. It loaded back up here with a 10-game slate. Benny, let's go ahead and talk about what you want to do at the one.
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple guys in the high range and a couple guys in the mid range for the plays that I'm looking for today. I like Chris Paul's matchup against Denver. I think he's in a pretty good spot there. Denver's a team that plays fast, gives up a lot of points to the point guard. Chris Paul's been playing really well lately. He's put up some 40, 50 fantasy point games, obviously picking up a scoring a little without Blake Griffin in there. He's also getting the assists, grabbing some rebounds, getting some steals. So he does a little bit of everything for you. I like him. Also like John Wall going up against Chicago. We know that Chicago, Derrick Rose hasn't been a guy who's been able to stop anybody. Chicago's been, pretty bad against the point guard for the last couple of years. So I think Wall's the way you can go and attack them. High usage guy on Washington. Anytime Washington scores a lot of points, Wall usually has his hand in it, either scoring or getting the assist. He also grabs a ton of rebounds, triple-double threat for you. He can get steals. I think he almost had a quadruple-double one game this year. So, he's somebody else I like up top. And then from there, I'm going down to guys like Mike Conley, who I like against the Lakers. Again, without Gasol, he's going to be asked to do a little more, put up a pretty good game last time out. Derrick Rose without Jimmy Butler going up against Washington, high-paced team there. So I think he's in a pretty good spot. So for me, it's either spending up towards the top for guys like Chris Paul or John Wall, or coming down and saving a little bit of money and going with guys like Mike Conley and Derrick Rose.
Yeah, Derrick Rose is a guy who we've talked about how his usage and his production has been way up without Jimmy Butler. And, Wall is actually used to be known for good defense. Now they're just known for high pace more than anything else. Not to say that he's a worse defender, but I think as a team overall, they don't defend as well. And you should take a look at Derrick Rose, 24, 26, 28 real life points in the last 3 games overall, with 7 threes, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in the last 2 games. So high production level. That's not through the roof, but for $6,900 in that price range, that's very cash safe. So he's probably my safe, cheaper cash game option on the slate there as well. And then if we have the Sacramento Kings who I never recommend against the San Antonio Spurs. But if you can sort of attack the point guard position. I think that is the one necessarily weak spot because you have a Tony Parker, Patty Mills combo there who aren't necessarily a great defender. This is at home, which helps benefit Zach. And, Darren Carlson has been a absolute cheat code playing, around roughly 30 minutes and splitting time between backing up Rajon Rondo and filling in as the two guard down in the stretch of fourth quarters for the Sacramento Kings. So just sort of keep him in mind. If you don't want to play him against San Antonio, I'll never blame you for that. I never do. But this is the one time where you may be able to make an exception because the price is certainly cheap and the production has been super, super solid. All right. Point guard successfully wrapped. Let's go ahead and talk about what you want to do at the 2 for Wednesday.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This is like the hardest position on this slate to find somebody because there's really nobody.
I'm going to just interrupt you for a second. I'm waiting for the time that you're going to deceive me because every single show you say, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. And you are honest every single time. And I just wonder, I was like, is there going to be just one time where Benny actually lies to me and then just deceives me? Is there going to be a curveball in here one of these days? Or are you just going to be like, Tommy Truthful for your entire life?
Basically, the way I look at it is even when I'm lying to you, I'm going to start it off by saying, to be honest with you. So you won't know either way. So it won't make a difference.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so I apologize for interrupting you there. Shooting guard, let's go ahead. And you said it's difficult, and I agree. You know what? A lot of people want to throw spitballs at us and hate mail for Jamal Crawford, and I'll say this first of all: that line itself is an aberration. Okay, and once the game got out of hand, they didn't even need him to do anything in the second half, and we knew that was a potential possibility. But I also, I don't think that was the wrong call. I will say one thing about Jamal Crawford. I think we need to evaluate that there is actually a shift in production on the second unit, and I'm not blaming it on this. This is just a game where they needed nothing from Jamal Crawford because they won by 40, and this game was over at halftime, and he didn't really do much in the first half. So there you have it. But Jeff Green is now officially a factor, not a DFS factor himself necessarily, but he is a factor in usage and being the combo guy that comes off the bench because it was Jamal Crawford just all the time, and twice on Sunday without Austin Rivers. Now you have to worry about Jeff Green. Does that sort of put you off Crawford, who's in a good matchup against Denver at home for Wednesday? Or is there some thought that we have to give to Jeff Green being in the lineup along with him now?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to affect him. To be honest with you, I'm not usually huge on Crawford anyway. I like Redick is basically this. I think Redick is actually cheaper, and he's the starter and the guy that sees more minutes. So I'd still rather use Redick if I was using either one of those two. But yeah, obviously we know that Doc traded for Jeff Green and has coached Jeff Green before, and he knows that, one thing Jeff Green does well is score the basketball. So if he's going to be on the second unit with Jamal Crawford, think about it. What has always been what people have said about the Clippers? Their bench is horrendous. What was the joke last night when they were blowing out, Phoenix in the first half? Oh, don't worry. When they put their bench in it, Phoenix will catch up. And I think now that they have somebody other than Jamal Crawford, who he doesn't have to do it all, let's face it, 2 points, nobody could have predicted he was going to go out there and have a game that bad. I think he finished with like 1 fantasy point last night, if I'm not mistaken, right? Wasn't something like just absolutely horrible like that?
No. Oh, you know what? I'm wrong. It was 1. I was going to say 1.8, but that was the ratio of payoff on the price tag. So,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so like I said, that's a game that nobody could have predicted that was going to come or expected it. This is a guy who was putting up 25, 30 points a game and was still pretty cheap. So it happens. I don't think you want to overreact to the fact and be like, well, now that Jeff Green's on the team, Jamal Crawford's never going to score double-digit fantasy points again. Like, we know that's not going to be the case. He's still going to have his games where he scores. Again, he's very scoring dependent. So, he's going to have his games where he scores 20 points still, and he's going to get you 25, 30 fantasy points. And then he's going to have his other games where he probably only gets 12 or 18 points and, finishes with like 20 fantasy points. So, I think it definitely affects him, but I don't think that you got to go jumping off the bridge right now and be like, this is a guy we can never play again. His price is coming up there, and his production might be coming down. So that's definitely something that you got to be concerned with. And, you want to see him have another good game before you put him back in your lineup.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there as well. So let's see if he can rebuild some sit him on the sidelines for a day, and then see what we can evaluate thereafter. Now, so aside from Jamal Crawford, who do you want in your lineup for Wednesday?
I mean, that's what I'm saying is let's go through the options that you have. I guess DeRozan is okay against Minnesota, but he's very expensive now, up at like 83, 8,400. If you're paying $8,000 for DeRozan, I don't think there's a ton of upside left there. You look at Dwayne Wade. I don't know if you would like to go Dwayne Wade against Golden State Warriors. Be my guest. It's not something that I'm going to do. I don't think Wade is 100%. I don't really love the matchup for him, so I'm not looking there. I haven't played Wiggins all year. He's way too scoring dependent. Klay Thompson is interesting against Miami, but again, do we like playing guys against Miami? Slow-paced team, they slow it down, so that's a tough matchup too. So I mean, everybody up top kind of gives me a little bit of pause. I guess Nick Batum is probably the guy I like the best, but even him is in a tough matchup because he's going up against Cleveland. Might have to guard LeBron on the other side. Might see a little bit of LeBron defense himself, depending how that works out. The guy who I'm actually the most comfortable with is probably KCP going up against Philly. Now that he's back from injury, we saw him get a whole bunch of minutes, so I'm not worried about him, them bringing him back slowly or anything like that. And I think at, like around 5K, which is usually his price tag, I think he can get me 25 to 30 fantasy points. So he's probably my favorite, but even that is not something I really like. So like I said, this is a really tough position. If there's some kind of value that opens up where you'd be able to punt it and, feel comfortable getting 25 points out of the guy you punt with, I would definitely do it here and, use the money to spend up elsewhere.
Yeah, it is pretty gross. I've gone through so many different guys here as well. You know what I might do is something else I haven't done all season long, but may make sense for the spot is use Danny Green today, like maybe even cash for Wednesday because it's Sacramento Kings, and we know that you're going to catch, at best Ben McLemore defense. All right, more likely, James Anderson, who's supposed to be their potentially stopper, or could be James Anderson, could be, Marco Bellinelli, which is amazing. If you want him for defense, because there is none when it comes to him, or Dan Carlson, who's actually probably their best wing defender on the roster, and he's undersized guarding the two. So Danny Green could, if you saw what happens to Sacramento Kings, if you watch as many games as I do, and I watch almost all of them, somebody by hook or by crook is going to get left alone on the wing to just bomb away, and more than likely Danny Green could be that guy. They move the ball tremendously well, and you saw what Danilo Gallinari was able to do against them at home. He was just left alone time after time, like just like Cyndi Lauper. It was just over and over and over. So keep your eyes peeled for Danny Green. You're getting a nice price on him. Maybe you want to limit him to GPPs because the game logs have been super uneven. I get that. If Kawhi Leonard is out, I'll definitely be in on Danny Green here, coming off a nice strong game against the Phoenix Suns, where he went for just a quiet line overall, but 29 fantasy points paid off almost 7 times value on that price tag, which at 4,500, you love that. So that's what I'm looking at. Anybody else that you want to go with? I have one more guy that I'm going to recommend, but I just want to see if you got anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually looking at some of these cheap guys to hope I can get some value, like maybe like a Wes Matthews if he's still around like 4K, like something like that. Or maybe, I'm even considering like a Gary Harris, like that, that's what I'm looking at, is a guy who's just that cheap that I can throw in there and hope to get 25 points out of, because there's nobody that I really feel like I need to spend up for here.
Yeah, do you feel dirty just like trying to recommend Gary Harris or anything like that? I just like feel like with some of these guys, I just need to take a bath after.
Well, that's what that's basically what I'm saying. There's nobody here that stands out to me at all at the position. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to try to build the rest of my roster around it. And then if I have 4,500 left for Gary Harris, I'll decide between like Harris and Wes Matthews. If I'm only left with 42 or 43 to get a Wes Matthews, well, then I'll take a Wes Matthews there. Like, this is going to be the position that I kind of wind up punting, I guess would be the way to describe it.
The one other thing I'll say too is at under 5K, Zach LaVine has just basically been about as consistent as we can find for Wednesday slate, which is crazy because there's 10 games there. But just take a look at the game logs for him. It's 20 fantasy points or more scored in every single game going back to January 25th. That's basically a month's worth of time. Sometimes you're only getting 4.5 times value if it's in the low 20s, but you might get to 25, 26, 27. And, he in some spots, he has 35 and 40 point upside. He's done that a few times in January. So there as well. And at under 5K, that might be the safest thing you can do for your lineup on the road at Toronto. Toronto, DeMar DeRozan isn't necessarily known for his defense. If he gets paired up with Ricky Rubio, which looks like it's happening some portion of the time because they're both still getting 20 plus minutes ish, then that could be better off than him actually facing Kyle Lowry defense, which you definitely wouldn't be as excited about. So something else to keep in mind at the shooting guard position, should you choose to do so. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the two. Before we move forward, we've got to let you know that if you haven't checked out the Rotowire.com website yet, what are you waiting for? 10-day free trial is waiting for you right now. All you have to do is go to rotowire.com/pod. Features include 8 different lineup optimizers for MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, college football, soccer, and golf, up to mid depth charts, customizable league projections, complete draft kits. I just got my fantasy baseball magazine from Rotowire. Did you put in for one? Did you get yours in the mail here, Benny?
Yeah, I do have it. I have not had a chance to look through it yet, but it actually is sitting right here next to my desk.
And awesome. Yeah, that's one of the great perks of working for Rotowire. They just mail that bad boy and over to us. And they did some awesome stuff. We've got like Paul Spohr from Fangraphs contributing, Todd Zola, our boss, Jarek Van Riper, who has been heading up the MLB department and competes in all the toughest leagues in the fantasy space for fantasy baseball. So great information from top to bottom. I love it. And then once you have that and you're subscribed to rotowire.com and you've got that information and those projections at your fingertips, you're ready to dominate any league that you want, be it season long or DFS. So make sure you check it out. Rotowire.com/pod, 10-day free trial. Let them know that Josh and Benny sent you. Small forward is up. Go ahead and tell me what you're putting down here for the Wednesday slate.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to pay up towards the top, the guy that I like the most is actually Paul George, who is somebody that I haven't been playing a lot lately and haven't played him in a while. But I do like this matchup for him against Carmelo. I also like the fact that there's a whole bunch of guys on Indiana that are kind of banged up. Like we know we have CJ Miles out, so that's a small forward that usually steals some minutes from him. George Hill's not 100% down there, so he's been getting a few extra minutes. I think he played like 42 in the last game. He had been playing 34, 36. So if he's going to get a couple extra minutes, a couple extra fantasy points, I could see him going 5 or 6x pretty easily. And I like the fact that he's cheaper than all the other guys above him. You got LeBron, who I don't think is in a horrible spot against Charlotte, but I just don't see any upside with LeBron. Like he hasn't given us those 60, 70 point fantasy games that would pay off his salary. So yeah, you might get the 5x out of him, but him and Durant might also give you, I feel like 5x right now is their ceiling at the price tag that they're at. Whereas I think you can get the same 50 points out of Paul George for, $1,200, $1,300 less, which would give him, more of a 6x return that would, put you up there in a place to win a GPP. So if I'm paying up at the top, Paul George is probably my favorite. And then from there, I'd probably drop down into like the 5K range. Guys like Luol Deng and Jeff Green are both interesting to me. Even with Dwayne Wade back last game, we still had Luol Deng put up 30-something fantasy points for like a 5.5, 6x return. So I think he's a bigger part of the offense right now. So with Bosch out, I think you still got to consider him. And then Jeff Green coming off the bench. They're playing in a high-paced game against Denver. Denver gives up a lot of points. Jeff Green is a guy who can score. So I think Jeff Green is a viable option as well at that like $5,200, $5,300 price range.
Now, when you say drop down, are you talking about dropping it low? Like you're getting low, or is this like limbo? Are you like twerk bouncing when you're doing this? I'm
definitely not twerking. I think it would be, you want to drop down. Like, I don't want to go low. Like, I'm not going to go flow rider on like the 3K guys here.
Are you talking about like I think roller skates under the limbo line? Like, did you do that when you were a kid? By the way, just you get to get the visual here on YouTube. It's like, oh, dun 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 dun. Dun.
Would you grow up in like South Beach or something? Like, I don't know. Yeah, no, I never was big into the rollerblading or the limboing in the street. I mean,
No.
I think no, not really. I think once down at like Carnival in St. Thomas, but that's about it. Yeah.
Hey, that's the time to do it, baby. If you're gonna be out there partying,
that's it.
Right?
Hey.
Drop it.
Yeah, I don't remember much of that week though. It was spring break when I was in college, and
Okay. Well, hey, if you're gonna drop it low when no one will know. That's the motto. There you go. All right. So for me, I think I want some exposure in the spot to Tobias Harris. And I think he's been a little bit. People have been, Tobias Harris got traded to Detroit. We need to see what happens. He is not starting, and then he finally gets a start on Monday, and it looks good. He's played 35 and 34 minutes, so it doesn't even matter whether he's starting or not. He's getting heavy usage, heavy run. We know that. If you do know anything about Stan Van Gundy, he loves the stretch four, and he loves to feature them and to be able to use them. And he's one who basically made Ryan Anderson's career into what it was, because Ryan Anderson at one point in his career was Steve Novak. If you know where Steve Novak is, he's bounced around the league like a ping pong ball. Nobody wants to play him, which kills me because I think he's actually like a top 5 3-point shooter in the league. How do you not make use of that? I know that he's not a great defender, but when the guy keeps, if you want to trade threes for twos or for whatever Steve Novak gives up, just say, hey, don't give up a three, when he's in the lineup. But regardless of that, that's a different conversation for a different day. So Ryan Anderson was like another guy buried on some roster, in and out of the rotation. Then all of a sudden he became a scoring machine. Give him credit for working on his own game. But Stan Van Gundy is the guy who made him into that role, and how he got that. That's why he got that big money contract in New Orleans. And now he has a similar version of that, but more athletic, in Tobias Harris. Not as good of an outside 3-point shooter, but can do a little bit of everything. And what he has been doing has been paying off more than 5 times the price tag, at around 30 fantasy points since he's been traded to Detroit. So I'm definitely be looking to get some exposure to him in a juicy matchup. GPP juicy is what I like to call it there in the Wednesday matchup against the Philadelphia 76ers. So keep your eye on Toby. All right, small forward wrapped up. Power forward up next. Let's go ahead and talk about what you want to do here at the 4.
Yeah, I think depending on what price Draymond Green is, I think that he's somebody that I'm going to be looking at. If he stays like a little above that 8K range that he's been the last couple games, I'd definitely be okay rolling him out there. Zach Randolph, I think, is still a little cheap for his new role. He's been like 6,500 over on FanDuel, so I think he's somebody that I'd definitely be looking to roll out there. Great matchup against the Lakers. We know the Lakers are horrible on the interior. Guy's been putting up big numbers against them, so you really can't ask for too much more than what he's giving you down there. I think Kevin Love's probably still in play just because he's been playing so well lately. They're making more of an effort to get him the ball, both in the paint and in the foul line area where he can, pass or shoot or go to the basket. It's a good place for him to attack from, so I like that. It's also a place where I think that, DeMarcus Cousins does a lot of his damage when he's not hanging out by the 3-point line. That short foul line area is good for big men that have, guard skills, and both of these guys can put it on the floor and pass. So I think it's a good spot for where he's at right there. On a little bit cheaper side, I like Miles Turner a little bit. Turner's going up against the Knicks. Carmelo's defense has never really been something to write home about. Turner's been putting up some good numbers, still below 6K on FanDuel. I think he can get us like 25, 30 fantasy points, so I like him. And then if I go cheap, I think Bobby Portis is probably the punt option that I'd look at. But one guy who's I wanted to kind of get your take on him, because he goes and puts up like 15 and 15 one game, and then he comes back and has like 8 fantasy points the next, and it's becoming somewhat of a pattern. So how do you feel about Tristan Thompson? Do you think for me, I think he's like GPP only, and I'm not going to feel comfortable ever doing it, but I do see the upside that he has where he could win you a tournament as well. But I don't think he'd ever be somebody I'd play in cash, because it just seems to me like he has these games where he goes out there and just does nothing.
Yeah, I agree with you there as well. I don't GPP only for me as well, because he could completely get game flowed out of game like he did against Detroit, where he plays 21 minutes and doesn't even score. That actually happened on January 6th. So that's a real thing that just happens occasionally for him, and so he just becomes dependent on whether or not he can get to double territory, which was great because he did it 3 games in a row. But I just don't trust him enough. You should know by now that he's not trustworthy in cash at this point. So I'm fine with him as a GPP play. I think you're definitely right, because people are going to be scared off that last line and say, "Oh man, I don't want to touch Tristan after that dud." You just don't know if you can trust him, which is exactly the formula for GPPs. All right, you want some potential fade territory coming into a guy, so you can use him and make some hay when you've got the low ownership percentage. Aside from that, I just want Gorgie Jang in most spots. I mean, I know he had one dud against New York, but aside from that, this guy's crushing, and these lines aren't really that far out of whack. But the price is just so low; they're in the low 6K range that 38 fancy points crushes it at 6 times value. So there's some great upside for him. He's doing a little bit of everything. He hits threes, he shoots free throws very well. Rarely leaves a stat category empty. Just prime example here: 17 and 12 with a 3, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. That's awesome against a very tough Boston defensive team. So yeah, I'm all in on Gorgie Jang for Wednesday. Are you with me?
Yeah, I like Dang a little bit. His price is getting a little expensive in spots, which is the one thing that gives me a little bit of pause. Like when we were getting him at 5K range, I loved it. I was putting him in my lineup like every day, while people were still like, yeah, but Towns is the starter. I'm like, great, yeah, Towns is the starter. Just plug Dang in and move on from there. I guess he's still viable right now. I just don't think he's got the same kind of upside. Like before, he was giving us like 6, 7, 8x upside because he was only priced at like 5K. I think he's up to like, a little over 6K on most sites right now. So I still think he's viable for cash, but I haven't been using him in GPPs like I had been, maybe 2 weeks ago or so.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, there's just as much consistency as you can possibly get. And am I mistaken in speaking or not mistaken in saying that 6x is more impressive on FanDuel than on other sites?
Yes, 6x. Yeah, 6x on FanDuel is
better than 6x
the upside you need.
FanDuel site is what I'm trying to say. Correct?
Yes, yes, because that puts you on pace for like 360 if you get 6x, and 360. Well, I mean, the scores have been huge. I mean, the other night I saw somebody crack 400 on FanDuel, which is crazy.
Right.
But I mean, a 360 score is cashing all your double ups and probably getting in the money, even on the highest scoring nights in every GPP as well. So that would be a huge score to target. Yeah.
All right, that sounds good to me. All right, so that's going to wrap up the power forward position here. Well, now what we need to do here is talk to all the business owners out there. Anybody out there who does not have a website yet, maybe you need a website. Why not do it yourself here with Wix.com? No matter what business you're in, Wix.com has something for you, used by more than 75 million people worldwide. Wix.com makes it easy to get your website live today. You need to get the word out about your business, so it all starts with a stunning website with hundreds of designer-made customizable templates to choose from, the drag and drop editor. There's no code needed. You don't need to be a programmer or designer to create something beautiful. You can do it yourself with Wix.com. Wix.com empowers business owners to create their own professional websites each and every day. So when you're running your own business, you're bound to be busy. Too busy to worry about the budget, the scheduling appointments, or busy to be worrying about the website for your business. And because you're too busy, it has to be easy, and that's where Wix.com comes in. With Wix.com, it's easy and free. Go to Wix.com to create your own website today. The results will be stunning. All right, it's time to talk about your stunners here at the center position here on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, are you paying up for DeMarcus Cousins here against San Antonio?
In cash? Maybe. I'm considering it, but what I think I'm probably going to do more than likely is roll with somebody like Andre Drummond against Philly, because I think there's going to be a big-time block party. And Karl Anthony Towns, I think, has just, for at least for cash purposes, has just turned into can't fade territory right now. You know, I mean, but the only problem that I have is like on FanDuel, he basically has to be in the 50-point range to, get you over 5.5x, which but he's been crushing. I don't. It's almost like you
Yeah.
have to say, how do you not? So I think you have some tough decisions that we need to make. I'm definitely fine with Andre Drummond against Philly as a pivot. The only question is, how many other guys can you really make a case for? Because I think my options to me are going to be limited to 3 or 4 guys that I really feel safe about. And DeMarcus Cousins is one of those guys, but like we said, I almost never play anybody against San Antonio, and I feel like I'm about ready to make 2 exceptions here. So, what's your approach?
Yeah, I've actually been looking a little bit lower on the list. If I was going to pay up a little bit, I like DeAndre Jordan a lot against Denver. Denver's been a team you've been able to pick on with the big guys this year. I don't think Jordan's too expensive. I think he could have had a monster game yesterday if they asked him to play a little more in the second half, which they didn't. So I think I like Jordan is probably one of my favorites. I'm also willing to roll out Whiteside again. If you think about last night, I mean, Whiteside had a huge game last night. I think he put up 52 or 53 fantasy points, something like that. And the biggest game of the night at center actually belonged to Al Horford, who put up a 60 spot against the Golden State Warriors. So I know that Bo gets back and that scares people away, but it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think Whiteside has a chance to put up another 20 and 15 or 20 and 20 and get a couple blocks to go along with it if he stays out of foul trouble. So I don't think Whiteside's a guy I'm using in cash. I almost never use him in cash, but I do like him for tournaments now without Bosh because he's soaking up all the rebounds and he's getting a few extra minutes on the floor. So towards the top end, those are the 2 guys I like. Down at the bottom end, I wanted to get your opinion on this guy. I'm going to admit this right now. I've actually been playing Robin Lopez the last couple days, and I'm okay with it because it's actually worked out pretty well for me. So how do you feel about Rolo as the top cheap option on the day here?
You know what? I've always been a little bit worried about Sideshow Bob. Because every time I want to trust him, and I always felt like for whatever reason, they might as well I felt like they're not going to be a running team. They've got a Flalo, Carmelo, Porzingis on the roster starting. Why wouldn't you just play Rolo, And these monster games right now with the 46 and 38 fantasy points on FanDuel, and if he's going to, which crush it, it's a little bit of an aberration for sure. You cannot expect 26 and 16, or 21 and 13. But what you can say is, hey, all right, if he's going to stay under the 6K range and you like the matchup, like we both do, in this spot, Rolo plays. I just lost it. Overall, yeah, Indiana, yes, Indiana and Jan Mahimi, which I'm not particularly scared off. I know people say Jan Mahimi has a good defense overall, but Rolo holds his own against anybody. When he's producing and gets the minutes. That's the only thing he has to do is get touches, and which is a little bit of a crapshoot. But you know what? The Toronto and Minnesota defense is nothing to sneeze at. They're not lockdown defenders, but those are decent performances overall. So I'm okay. GPP only for sure. For me, I would rather do something like play DeAndre Jordan against Denver. For safety. I don't think there's a lot of GPP upside in that, personally. But that Denver and that three-headed monster of a rotation, there could be a serious block party going on with DeAndre Jordan at home against Denver, and it could just be oopsity all day long. So that's where I'm doing that. I also trust. I think you have to trust Karl-Anthony Towns, and Whiteside scares me because he could get game flowed out of this game if the Warriors just decide to destroy Miami, which is a strong possibility. But on the other side of that, as well, the one spot you can probably potentially target is Andrew Bogut, who holds his own on defense. But Hassan Whiteside, they sort of need him to step up if Bosh is going to be out of the lineup right now. So since they can't trust Goran Dragic to be consistent, so I think that can make some sense as well. Anybody else that you want to talk about the center position before we wrap it all up and ship it on over?
Nah, not real. I mean, guys like Jokic and Mahinmi and, they're
not in
interesting.
a great spot against DeAndre Jordan, although DeAndre Jordan hasn't been known to allow his fair share of fantasy points at the center position.
The DeAndre Jordan is a good defender narrative is something that I don't buy into, to be honest with you. I have no problem targeting people against him.
They are bottom 12 in fantasy points allowed, so I totally agree with you there. The only problem that I have is when you are really playing roulette if you're gambling on banking on Jokic to be an every game producer. So for every 44-point performance, he has a 3-game stretch where he scores 16 fantasy points or less against teams that you should have been able to handle in Brooklyn and Sacramento, who gave up DeMarcus Cousins does a number on him and gets him 4 fouls in 4 minutes, but then gives up almost a career high to Joffrey Lavergne. It's just completely random as to what you can expect from the production from that team. So, I'm a little bit.
It's definitely not something I would mess with in a cash game. If you're going to use it at all, if you're going to use him at all, he's got some kind of tournament upside interest to me, but definitely not in a cash game. I agree with you.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Thanks for watching and listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Rotowire DFS official YouTube channel on YouTube, and you can check us out on Twitter at check us out on iTunes and Stitcher. Anytime to subscribe and download, share with your friends. Benny's on Twitter at BennyR11. I'm on Twitter at JoshHayesFS, and it's at Rotowire for all your season long and DFS fantasy needs. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.